Hello there. Welcome to the Marriage Unmasked podcast. Today we're talking about when you start to love your kids more than you love your spouse.
Yeah, it's really just a little bit of a heart check. Like, is this happening? I think sometimes it sneaks up and you don't even realize that is, whether it's true or not, it's the impression that you're giving. And I think if you look in your heart, it might be true.
I don't know, especially when you're going through a painful time in your own
Yeah,
marriage.
yeah.
Definitely. There are some telltale signs that this is going on and that you're struggling with this. Um, Maybe one of them would be, you're not spending as much time alone as a couple. You're not really engaged. You're not going on dates as much. You're not having those deeper conversations with each other on a regular basis. Um, and when you are having conversations, it's mostly about the kids. Like, what are the kids doing? What's their practice? Or, you know, where are we going to take them next? Or whatever it is, or what they're struggling with. Another one is you feel guilty a little bit when you're not together with your kids. Like, you guys are together as a couple, but the kids aren't around, and you almost feel guilty. It's almost like, oh, your heart is almost like drawn to like be with your kids instead.
And I think there's a difference between feeling guilty and just missing them,
Yeah.
because you can miss your kids, right? But feeling guilty, like you should be spending time with them instead of your spouse, that might be an indicator of kind of what might be going on inside of your heart.
Absolutely. And then, like maybe the kids' activities are taking priority over your marriage, taking priority over your whole life. Yeah. I mean, you hear so many people with like sports and teams and running around trying to like do all these things and pack all these things into their kids' lives, which some of that is fine and good, of course, but if it's overwhelming the marriage relationship, taking over the family, taking over time that you can spend with your spouse and really connect with your spouse.
Well, and it can also just really affect you personally, right? And when you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed, when you're exhausted because you're running here, there, trying to manage all these schedules, trying to make sure your kid is doing enough, right? In your head, you have this idea of what enough is. Then that is exhausting and that's draining. And I know I've noticed I have to be really careful about how much energy I'm giving off during the day when Adam and I are not together. Because if I'm not intentional about it, I can end up giving all my energy to everything else. And by the time he comes home, I'm done, right? And then it's like, there's nothing to give to the marriage, right? I'm just like, don't talk to me, right? Like, I need to be alone, or like, don't touch me. Like, I've given all of my patience, all of my kindness, all of my energy to other things. And then that definitely has not helped us in the
And that
past.
can happen for men too. I mean, they can give all their energy to their career, to the work day, and not carefully guard that energy for time at home. And also, what can be tempting for men too is if they are gone away from the kids all day, they can be tempted. I know I have been to like really focus on the kids when I get home, and to really like make that even more of a priority than spending time with your wife, and that can be a sign that this is part of the problem here, that you're really loving your kids more than your spouse.
Yeah.
And another one is if you are dreaming more about the kids' future and what they're going to experience in life than you are about the future of your own marriage and where you're headed.
Yeah, it's easy to get really wrapped up in your kids. You spend so much time worrying about them, wondering if you're doing the right things, if you're a good enough parent, if you're doing, like we talked about, if you're signing them up for enough things, if you're, all these things. But then when you compare that to like how much thought, how many thoughts, how much emotion that you're putting into your kids versus how much you're putting into your marriage, sometimes that can be really revealing. Like, oof, okay.
Yeah, that can be convicting.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, I think that the deeper issue really, it comes back to safety. It's not necessarily about loving one person more than another, but it really comes back to where your heart feels safest. And that is, a lot of times where you're putting your energy.
Yeah.
And so, and we're not even talking about this topic to try to make you feel guilty or to put you in shame. Absolutely not. It's always coming from a compassionate place where we want to help you uncover what is in your heart and then offer yourself so much love and kindness. And that awareness can help you to decide how you want to move forward.
Yeah.
Because I know for us, there's been many times in our marriage where I felt very unsafe with Adam.
Mm-hmm.
And so what feels safe to me is my kids. They feel safe. I can go and get a hug from Haven anytime.
Anytime. It doesn't matter what's going on.
She will hug me. She will snuggle with me. She will make me laugh. And that's our youngest, by the way.
Yes.
I mean, all of our kids, they're so sweet. They are just incredibly
They
wonderful.
have really big hearts.
And so I know I can go to them, and this is not always, right? Sometimes I have tried to go to them and then I'll get snapped at, or and then I'll go into an even bigger kind of pity party for myself. Like, well, nobody, nobody loves me. But
and that can happen for men too. I mean, like I sometimes, and maybe I don't know if I would call it safety necessarily. I mean, but I think honestly that is what it is. It's like feeling safe in the relationship, but it's almost like it's easier. It's easier to have that relationship with the kids because I would look at my relationship with the car in those moments and like that's difficult, that's challenging, but it's easier to go to the kids.
Yeah.
It's easier to get some of my emotional needs met there, or that they're going to love me back, and maybe I'm feeling rejected by Kara, then I feel accepted by them.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah,
it happened for both. Yeah,
I mean, when you're coming up against, you're sharing your heart with your spouse, and you're feeling invalidated, or you're criticized, or there's some kind of disconnection in the marriage, and you feel lonely. That's how I felt a lot. Is I feel so lonely in the pain and the disconnection, and so who am I going to go to, right? I mean, I do go to God now a lot, but I also will go to my kids because there's 5 of them, and I'm never alone.
On a good day, at least one of them is going to give you some affection.
Yes, no, that is true. No.
You might have a grumpy teenager on your hands, but like one of the younger ones, or somebody's gonna fill your love bucket.
Well, I remember when we were in like the thick of little kid years, and I would have I felt like they were all freaking out, but that I always felt like God was so kind to me because there would always be one that was still okay and was still like calm and loving or whatever. And so I always thought that was so kind of God to always give me one. Yeah. But it's a sad thing, really, that we don't feel safe enough with our spouse, that we feel like we have to go to our kids. But where you feel safest is often where I know as a woman, that's where you are your softest self. And I know you've probably seen me be really soft with the kids, but then be really hard with you.
Yes, and that's hard to take. It is, like, because in that moment you feel an extra sort of layer of rejection, because it's like she doesn't love, like she can, it's almost like she can flip a switch. It's like one minute she's talking to me a completely different energy, and then the next she's talking to the kids in a completely softer, open, loving way. And that can be painful, and it almost rubs some salt in the wounds at the moment. And it's taken me some time to like kind of check my own emotional, like, whatever in that moment. Like, don't take that personally, like, and be able to kind of step back and be like, okay, like I understand the dynamic here. I understand why she's feeling a certain way and why she's switching her energy for the kids, and give her some grace for that, instead of just like, write her off and be like really upset about it.
Yeah. I think a lot of times what's happening, well, for us, there's been a lot of distrust in our marriage. There's been a massive loss of trust. And so, I do. I feel very unsafe with him. And so that is exactly that is exactly what it is. It's
Yeah.
like I put up my wall for him, but then I take the wall down for the kids, even if they're like in the same we're maybe even at like the dinner table, right? And I'm like, you're getting the wall and they're getting,
This is funny, and I'm gonna share this just because it's funny. But like, I actually noticed that once with the dog. Like, literally, the dog was getting more like better attention. Like, she was like talking so sweet to the dog, and then snapping at me.
Which dog?
Ezzy was getting the love. Yeah.
No, I know that. I recognize that in myself too. Definitely know that, and it is. I'm sure it's really hard.
But it does make sense because, like, that is a safe place. Like, the dog is a safe place. Like, the dog's not gonna, like, reject your love and your affection and your attention. And so, like, it makes sense. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
And I've had to kind of swallow that and be like, okay, I understand this.
Mm-hmm.
And that just gives me more motivation to, like, be more of a safe place.
Yeah.
And invite that softness back so that she does feel like she can have that energy with me again.
And that is so powerful because I am working with so many wives who feel unsafe in their marriages. They feel, criticized. They feel attacked. They feel.
Would you say that's the number one issue that you're dealing with wives? Like, do you think safety is like the number one big issue?
I think it is a very big issue, but it looks a lot differently to each wife. It can look so.
It's got
different.
nuances to it. Yeah, I'm sure.
Like for instance, if a wife is feeling unseen, if she's feeling unappreciated, a lot of times she will go to the kids again to get her value, to feel valuable.
Yeah.
Well, at least I'm a good mom, right? At least my kids say, "Mom, you're the best. I love you, Mom." Right? And where you're feeling unseen with your husband, he's not paying attention or he's not giving you that appreciation.
Yeah.
You don't feel pursued by him, but at least you can find that value from your kids and from that identity of like, I'm a good mom.
And that honestly happens with me too. I've experienced that as well. Like, when we're having whatever difficulty, and like, I know Kaylana once said something like, you're like the," or she wrote me a note, and you're like the best dad ever. And I actually teared up and started, because that was like, I received that from her.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting that from you. And it was like, it really meant something. But it's like, there's that draw to like get that from your kids.
Yeah.
Instead of getting it from your spouse.
Yeah. I mean, but the question then is like, what happens when your kids grow up and they leave, right? And they move out. And then if you have left this to be this very unbalanced thing where you get your safety, you get your identity, you get all these things met with your kids instead of your husband, that's when I think a lot of times marriages just, they're done. They're just out, right? Because there's nothing left there. There's no firm, strong foundation.
Yeah, because there hasn't been this intentional growing of the relationship outside of the kids. And so when the kids leave, it like leaves this big hole in the relationship, and then it's like, who am I with? And I think I don't know if I have statistics on this, but I think a lot of divorces happen at that stage when like the kids leave. Like,
well, our pastor always says like 90% of statistics are made up on the spot. So just make something up.
Let's come up with a number here.
Yeah, 95%.
95% of marriages fail in like your 40s, your 50s. You're like,
don't call us on that.
Yeah, you could probably Google that and get a better answer like right now.
Yeah.
I wonder if it is true, because that's such a huge transition time. And if you haven't prepared for that transition time, if you haven't invested in your spouse and your relationship together, then the cracks really show when the kids leave.
Yeah. If the kids are the only thing holding your marriage together. God actually places marriage as the foundation, right? A lot of times culture says now that everything's about the kids, right? The kids come first. You got to be putting your kids' needs first. And I understand why. I mean, kids are so valuable. They're so precious. They do need a lot of attention. They take a lot of energy.
And that is a huge part of your mission, really, is to raise your kids and to pour your love into them and to prepare them for the world. I mean, it is a huge part.
But if you put your own health, your own well-being, or your marriage's well-being on the back burner to put your kids first, that can really backfire on you because you need to be well, right? You need to be healthy. You also need your marriage as the strong foundation. Your kids are noticing. I mean,
Oh yeah.
we have had examples, and I've talked to other wives, and it's the stories that they've shared about the things that their kids notice, and they did not think they snuck that past them in their marriage, like, oh, they never would notice that about us or what we're going through, and they do.
Oh yeah, the kids definitely do. I mean, I remember once Bryn, I don't even know, like we were having difficulty, we were having an argument of some kind, and we, we thought, okay, the kids aren't going to see that. They're not. I mean, this is all happening outside of the realm of where they can really see it. But they get that energy. They can feel that. They really can. And so, and Bryn is a bit more insightful,
She's
emotionally attuned. I would say
Yes.
she's very emotional and she's very attuned into other people's emotions, and she can kind of vibe off of that.
Yeah.
And so she comes to me and she's like, "Are you and mommy okay?"
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh man, like she is spot on here. There's something going on that's deeper, and she's reading the room really deeply here. And like then to reassure her, like, yeah, we're okay. We're having I mean, and it's good to be honest. Like, yeah, I mean, the kids shouldn't get like this, like it's all roses view of marriage either. I mean, I think that it's healthy for them to see, a real life marriage and to get an example of that.
And to see a healthy, if you're having conflict, to see that it can be a healthy thing and how you work through it. Reassuring them, especially if they were observing the actual discussion, the actual conflict, to then also reassure them, and set that example for how you reconciled and how you came together again and all that. That is, I think that's really healthy.
Sometimes there's a need to apologize in front of the kids, like for something that you said to your spouse because it was like inappropriate to say that in front of the kids. And I know we've both done that. But it's good to have that, that honesty with them, and that humility to be able to apologize to the kids.
I think that, on a little bit of a side note, I was just thinking about how husbands, I think sometimes they struggle with this if their wife is, leaning more towards getting her safety and her identity met from the kids. There can be like a hidden pain there where, he feels second and he suffers silently because he might get this impression that it's selfish to bring it up. Like, look at me, right? Spend more time with me. Why are you, like
that is a thing.
I don't know where exactly. I don't know. I mean, because I think it's totally valid for them to have those desires to be,
Wait, in a sense, you feel a little bit left out. You feel a little bit alone because now your wife is really bonding with the kids, and she's usually, she has more time to bond with them depending on the situation. And you feel like you're outside of the whole circle, and you feel alone. You feel like I'm left out. You get a little FOMO actually because everybody else is like so connected, and then you're kind of standing on the outside, and that can increase some of the sadness and the loneliness and whatever from just actually working outside of the home as it is already. Like it can aggravate that. Because now you feel even more isolated, especially when there's conflict or when there's issues, and your wife is really vibing strongly with the kids. It can be pretty painful.
And wives, I think if you're noticing that maybe your husband is not showing you as much affection, or maybe he's withdrawing a bit, maybe he's irritable. Maybe this could be some of the pain behind the way he's showing up.
It's worth a good conversation to really kind of get down to the, like have a direct conversation about it too, and just like, is it possible that you're feeling this?
And I think both spouses, it's so important to remember you both want to be wanted. I know I want to be pursued as a wife. I want to be cherished. I want to be wanted. And so do you, right?
Men want to be I mean, pursued and I don't know, like it's attractive. You want to know that you're wanted. I think that's what it really is. It's like you want to know that you're wanted. It's
That's
not
what I just
necessarily.
said.
There's something on ears here.
That's all right. You came up with the idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Anyways,
Real life conversations.
yeah, it's on marriage unmasked. Like we're unmasked in the marriage.
Sometimes we repeat ourselves.
That's right, and I often do. I am actually I have a tendency to repeat myself quite often.
Yeah. So, okay, let's say that you're struggling with this, right? I think it is great to take ownership if that is something that you're noticing is going on for your heart, right? Bring in healing, bring in kindness and compassion to yourself and also to your spouse. But have those conversations, especially have the part where you take ownership, right? But then some other, I think, helpful shifts to make to kind of move back to connection and to prioritizing your marriage. One is, I think, just focusing on a daily connection where you are speaking, in a loving way. You're showing them that you're pursuing them, that you want them, and you talk about something at least once, right? Like talk about something together that's not the kids, it's not the logistics of your family and, your whole household, all the issues that come up for your household or your homestead.
Maybe it's getting back to flirting. Like flirting with each other a little bit.
Sure,
like
that's
going
good.
back to kind of like your dating relationship, and because that's a special thing that you share together without the kids, really.
Yeah, yeah. Bringing back non-sexual touch where you're just, and I think that's a big part of flirting, at least for us, is like a lot of non-sexual touch. Again, it just shows like I want to be like so close to you, I want to touch you, right? And it makes you feel wanted. Also, I think something that's been we're talking about, I feel like we've talked about this several times, but like the weekly check-in where you're really taking time, and you can do it as a date night or you can do it outside as an extra little time together, but every week really just getting into some of these deeper topics and discussing them, like how do you feel about our sex life, or what's hurting you this week, just getting into some of these deeper questions that dive into the heart of what's going on in your marriage and help you to be vulnerable and understand each other and where you're coming from,
and have it in a safe environment, because it's a scheduled thing. It's an intentional, purposeful talk that you're going to have. But this is a safe place to talk about some of those things.
Yeah. And it's also, I think, really helpful to just speak so much life and so much kindness about your spouse to your kids.
That's powerful.
Because when you are in, and it can be really hard because when you are in pain, that's probably not the first thing that's coming up out of your mouth is wanting to speak life about your spouse. But it is really powerful for your own mind to put your brain to work for what is some really beautiful things about your spouse, right? What are some things that you admire, and put your brain to work to think of those things and then speak them, out to your children.
And that's so powerful with the kids, because the kids will really vibe off of that. They'll really enjoy that. Like that just shows, it gives them a sense of stability in the in your relationship. It communicates that, we care for each other. Our marriage is really strong, in a very clear way.
So we're not saying anything like you have to love your kids less, but the point is really just to start loving your spouse with intention again, and to uncover if there's any pain inside of you that isn't getting healed, to uncover that and then bring so much love and compassion and healing to that. Absolutely. And if you are a wife and you are hurting and you're struggling with this, you're feeling unsafe, my restored community is open. We want to welcome you in. You're going to get weekly coaching where we can talk through some of this stuff. As things come up and you realize, wow, I do have pain around that, we can coach through your specific questions, your specific struggles. You get our entire Healing Your Marriage course. So many other incredible parts to this membership. You're going to love it. And I believe God is on the move. It is so beautiful to see the women sharing vulnerably and to see the encouragement. I am just so excited for you to join us. So the link for that is in the show notes. And
men too, if you're struggling with loneliness or like you're feeling like you're outside of the circle, reach out to me. I do coaching, and I've been there. We can have these kind of conversations, and we can start to connect. It's really helpful for guys to talk to other guys about these things and get some support.
Yeah.
So reach out to me if you
Absolutely.
need some coaching on something.
Absolutely. Well, we hope that this really helped you and helped you again pursue your marriage and get back to this really wonderful place of connection again.